So we've got 9 U-bolts to have 9 ropes. This will save you probably $150 or $60. Once you get all your ropes in, find a tire, which are free. All of our tires we've found at old junkyards or old tire shops. And you would take a U-bolt, which we're going to go over here in a second. Go around it evenly. So once you got your tire, the U-bolt, we have about a 3.5 inch bolt that would go through it with 2 pre-drilled holes. So you would need a drill. We use a 3/4 inch drill bit to take a 1/2 inch bolt into each hole. And then a long washer at the top, secured at the top with 2 nuts. Underneath this, underneath the tire, there's also another nut and then a locking nut on top of that. And it's pretty secure. You may want to have a lock washer at the bottom as well in case it goes up, depending on how much use you're going to do. But this guy in a magazine is probably going to cost you about $170, and probably total we spent about $15 to $17 on the hardware. Obviously the ropes are going to be extra. The tire, like we talked about, is going to be something you can find for free, and you've saved yourself several $100s. So foam roller, you should be experienced with these by now. Maybe $15, $20, or maybe even more. It's been so long. For the most part, this is going to be fine. But if you want to save a few dollars and you have a more heavily muscled athlete, you can get a thick PVC pipe and then wrap it. We've just wrapped ours in duct tape, so when you go over material, say in sweats or a shirt, it doesn't slide off of it. It just acts like a tacky surface that you can stay on it. But again, you've got to be heavily muscled to benefit from this, or it's just going to be too painful. Alright, so boxes. Multiple uses for boxes. We decided to make ours 6 inches or 12 inches. And then we've got a tacky surface for the landing and then a non-slippery element as well. This actually came with some of our equipment to help protect it. So you've got handles sawed in there and then extra support on the bottom. So you've got 2 pieces going each way to give it that perpendicular support so it doesn't have any collapse in the middle. Each piece of wood is secured with screws specifically for wood. And it makes a great way to just lift it, transport it over. We've also got the multi-purpose box, 20 inches, 24 inches, and then 30 inches. If you get closer on this one, you can see how it's been glued together, but also in this puzzle-like position, where the little T goes out, and then the U part of this piece of wood goes in. So that was glued, and then it was used several screws around the top and the edges. So another way to save, I think this is about $150 or so. This is maybe $15, $16 worth of wood. Alright, so we've got a few of our tires here. There's 4 or 5, a little baby one over here. These were all free. A couple of them were at an Army surplus facility. These came off of an Army vehicle that they were going to throw away. Some of the other ones, you can see the tread is really low on this one. And again, they were going to, I think, either recycle this one or take it to a plant that uses them for other purposes to recycle and reuse. And usually if you go to one of the larger tire companies around town, we're in Cincinnati, Ohio, they just put these on the side of their garage and they get rid of them. So if we just say, hey, can I take that off your hands? They're more than willing to give them to you because they have to pay per tire to have them removed. So that's another option. You can do a lot of things with those. So these are some of our tires. And then to make this guy heavier, because it wasn't heavy enough at 300, if you get closer you can see these bolts around here, and inside the bolts are another 20 pounds or so, maybe 40 pounds per bolt, I believe. If you can get deep in there, you can see how the bolt is really, really long. And again, we've got a couple of washers and a couple of locking nuts, and we just added another 140 pounds inside of the tire. So this went from a 300-pound tire to, I believe, 520. when we ended up weighing it. So if your tire's just not heavy enough for flipping or carrying or whatever you're doing with it, find that drill, get in there, and then you get some thick bolts. Add weight. We found this old leg extension on a universal machine at someone's garbage pickup and took it. And that's how we got the additional weights. Alright, so another way to configure your ropes is if you have any beams on your building, metal that's exposed, you can take those same U-bolts that we used on the tire and drill those right into it. So first you would need a specific drill bit that would penetrate steel. Make sure you look for those before you go ahead and waste the money on them. And it's the same exact configuration. The U-bolt in this case is going to house two ropes. They would go in opposite directions. And then you've got the locking washer and then a nut, and on the back of it you can have the bolts attach in the back to make sure it stays. Third option for rope attachments. We're still using the same beam configuration, still drilling the hole, but now I've got an O bolt with an O-ring. So now I can take, as long as the circumference of the bolt or the O-ring is larger than any diameter of the rope, it should be able to slide through. And then you can get some kind of play when it moves around. Got a washer on each end and then a locking nut in the back just to make sure it prevents any loosening upon use. Alright, another creative way to get some vertical pulling, although there's probably some other things that you could use this for, is you've got a thin rope, and you'll see why in a second. There's a vertical pulley at the top, which you'll also see, and then on the other end of the rope, you can attach, we've had up to 3 kettlebells on here. The rope is then attached with a PVC pipe, and then 2 pretty thick bolts with some nuts and washers. So the reason we picked this diameter rope, A, because it allows even the smallest of hands to wrap around it for safety purposes. And then if you go up, you see that the pulley system can only take so much of the diameter of anything larger. This is about the only size it can take, but nothing larger. And then on the top of the pulley, there's just 2 brackets that are attached to each other and then attached to the beam. It's a really creative way to get vertical pulling outside of the traditional pull-ups and pull-downs. Alright, so if you work with any bands or if you want to do some speed drills where you need something anchored to your facility, we decided that we've got about 12 feet of a couple of beams attached in the middle with a T, and then all that's attached to our foundation. In the middle it's attached to a vertical beam. But if you get closer you can see we made the mistake of using a regular drill bit and it took a while. We had to go and get a hammer drill to penetrate several inches into the foundation. You can see some went in and some didn't go in as far as others. But as long as we secured it with nuts and washers, this thing has not moved in 10 plus years. And then we've got some things with elastic resistance. We can tie up one band or we can tie up multiple bands for acceleration. We can have 6 people on this side and 6 people on this side. So if you're talking large group training, you can have a lot of people not taking up a large footprint of your facility versus if they were all around attaching it to different things besides one universal beam. Total cost of all this was probably around $50, but it did take a while. You may want to get either a hammer drill or rent one out before you attempt any other kind of drill or drill bit. Alright, so I know you've seen these in some of the magazines. I think they retail for about $30 a pair. We got 2 different types here. One's not necessarily better than the other, just different types. For exercises that you can do if you have a turf field. You can even do them in grass if the grass is short enough. But you can get about 8 of these in a pack for about $4 or $5. Maybe even cheaper depending on where you get them. So a pair in a magazine for $30 or up to 8 for $4. Alright, so a couple of gripping options that we found work really well. The lapel or the arms from a gi. If you just cut them off at the shoulder, you can wrap them around, say a barbell, a dumbbell, the handle of a machine, and you extend the handle out, but now you have to squeeze a lot harder than grip. So you can take like a crush grip, you can take a pinch grip, you can do multiple things by simply changing the type of attachment that your hand is on. Speaking of that, you can use certainly the handles that come with it, but it's really thin. So it's probably not going to challenge your grip as much as something a little bit thicker. So for instance, a wrestler may use this as far as grabbing a wrist of an opponent. So you're grappling and you grab their wrist the same you would grab this. Then you would think of pulling in this position. You can also look at something even thicker. Say again a wrestler or a combat athlete, if you want to get some kind of neck pull, you pull them towards you to get some kind of distance pulled in. You can do single arm, you can do multiple arms, you can do throws, but now you can't really grip it with this thin handle the way that you want to. Your hands overlap, they barely even get towards each other on this one. So again, a simple PVC pipe, some rope, a little carabiner at the end, and you've got about a $2 device to work on grip and pulling strength.